There's an article. It was by Atul Gawande. He's a surgeon at Harvard, and he spent a lot of time in the White House actually doing some medical policy discussion, and he's uncovered some incredible information. The Cost Conundrum was a major article. It appeared in Annals of Medicine, but it was also, I think it was a New York Times bestseller. It was a big, big deal. A lot of the public saw this. And basically what they're talking about here is the human cash register, the human ATM. So the U.S. fails to control surgical and medical procedure utilization. We just fail. We don't do that. And again, I mentioned the term earlier, the medical industrial complex. It's a major, major financial market, and it should not be. Since a decade ago, almost half of primary care physicians believed that much of the care provided is unnecessary. So again, we're not talking about some crazy internet doc. We're talking about half the docs that are doing primary care. And guess what? 2 to 3% of docs actually go into primary care, and those are the guys that aren't going to get paid as much, and they care more about helping people. 83% of the folks surveyed thought they could be sued for not ordering a test. So that's why they ordered a test, not to help the patient, but just to keep from being sued. 52%, again, also over half, said that they ordered tests due to performance measures in their contracts, not because it's going to help a patient. In other words, hospitals that tend to be driven by specialists basically hire primary care docs and reward primary care docs, compensate them on referrals to specialists. 62% said they ordered tests due to financial incentives. So maybe too much of a good little boy and haven't really discussed this enough. I truly did. I came into medicine thinking that the majority of doctors were going to be focused on what helps the patient. And as you can see here, 62% are saying, you know what? We order tests for financial reasons, to make money. So guess what? Is anybody surprised that the prices in healthcare increase over time? Now let's talk about stress tests. There's no evidence that stress tests, EKG or myocardial perfusion. What is that? Myo means muscle, cardial means heart. Heart muscle perfusion. What does perfusion mean? Blood studies. In other words, studies to see if the heart muscle is getting enough blood. That's what myocardial perfusion imaging is about. In other words, it's a nuclear stress test. It's what they're doing with this guy right here. They're putting him on a treadmill. They're cranking up the speed and the incline. They're telling him to walk. They're getting EKGs while they're doing it. And guess what they're also doing? They're injecting dye to see how he's perfusing, how his blood supply is to his heart. Now again, why did they do this? Because they knew that they weren't working with just an EKG, and they said, maybe if we put a bunch of radionuclear dye in this patient while they're doing this, and we took pictures, it would greatly improve the predictability, and we could now predict whether somebody's going to have a heart attack. Well, no, they don't really predict whether you're going to have a heart attack. I'm not saying they're useless, but again, we'll talk about what the standards committees have said. Over $501 million have been spent in unnecessary tests, admittedly unnecessary by the doctors that ordered them. Stress test costs around $200 to $300, as I mentioned before. But then once you start adding all this nuclear stuff, it's 4 times more expensive, 6 times, 8 times, and sometimes 20 times. The typical costs for nuclear stress testing is $1,500 to $20,000. And you think, wow, that's crazy, Ford. That's over a factor of 10 in terms of range. Oh yeah. Get a stress test at some local private clinic versus a community clinic and just start calling around. Look it up on the internet. Google variation in costs of a stress test or a nuclear stress test, and you'll start getting the picture. And again, or you could get the book and we lay it out for you pretty well.